This is a little feature on grasses in the winter. This is one that stays green. Muhlenbergia schreberi or Nimblewill. This is growing in a tank at the Wildflower Center, and during the growing season it will spill down over the edges a lot more. Very soft textured plant. Most of the grasses are dormant this time of year. Most of them don't show a lot of green, yet they can be very pretty, particularly if the seed heads remain on all winter, and I'll show you some of those. This is one of my favorite native grasses. This is Seep Muhly, Muhlenbergia reverchonii. This is a very, very tough drought-resistant grass, and unlike a lot of the miscanthus grasses that are planted commonly, this one doesn't take any extra water once it's established. This is the plant in the winter, and you can see it still has these very soft blonde seed heads. Seep Muhly. Another Seep Muhly growing by itself. You can see it makes a very nice, neat little clump. These leaves are very curly and no more than 6 or 8 inches high. The seed heads grow to about 2 feet high. Here's a Lindheimer Muhly grass growing in the San Antonio Botanic Garden. This is a very popular grass in landscaping. Very well adapted native. I find that it does do best with a little bit of extra water, although when they get really well established they can usually get by with very little extra water. And this is named after Ferdinand Landheimer, a German botanist who explored Texas back in the 1800s and settled in New Braunfels. Muhlenbergia lindheimeri, Lindheimer Muhly grass. This is one of my favorite native wild grasses, the canyon muhly or plateau muhly. It's a natural hybrid between Lindheimer Muhly and Seep Muhly. And this is it in the winter. Here's the grass that does very well in the hill country without any extra water. A clumping ornamental grass. It's one of the Muhlenbergias, Muhlenbergia dubia or pine muhly. And you can see it retains quite a bit of green foliage all winter. You wouldn't want to cut this back right away. I'd wait till you see new growth coming out in the spring. Pine muhly. This is a switchgrass growing in a large pot so that it can be watered periodically with a drip line. This is Panicum virgatum, Dallas Blues. It's a selection that was discovered in the Dallas area. It has a very blue foliage. You can see in the winter it's totally died back, but still it's very attractive with backlighting if you can situate it with backlighting. Here we have Mexican feathergrass, Nassela tenuissima, and it retains quite a bit of green foliage in the winter. Depending on the exposure, they can get quite gold, but this one is still retaining quite a bit of green. Mexican feathergrass, a very fine textured grass that looks great in a breeze. As you can see, it sort of floats around gracefully. Here's an ornamental clumping grass that retains quite a bit of green foliage. Even now in January you can see it's quite green. And the plumes are still there and very attractive, particularly with backlighting. This is very little known in the hill country. It's a grass that's native to the west, including parts of West Texas. It's called the, and South Texas. It's called the giant Sacaton. This is a variety from New Mexico called the Los Lunas form from High Country Gardens in Santa Fe. But this will eventually get larger than a pampas grass, I'm told. This one's only been here a couple of years, but it's coming along and doesn't take any extra water. It's very drought resistant, which is an advantage over pampas grass in our area. Here's a grass that requires extra water in the hill country. This is a type of Gulf Muhly. This is Muhlenbergia. Used to be called Philopes. The species now is sericea. It's virtually indistinguishable from the typical Gulf Muhly, Muhlenbergia capillaris. But as you can see, this one still has a lot of green foliage in January. And the plumes are very attractive in the wind, as in now, and with backlighting. Does need extra water though. This is pampas grass in the winter. It's a little bit frosted, but basically green in the interior. And you do have some plumes that are more spectacular in the late summer and fall, but they're still quite attractive. And this does need extra water in the hill country, as here it's in an irrigated landscape. But it does make an excellent screen or a specimen plant. Pampas grass. I'd like to conclude this little video on grasses with a grass-like plant that is actually a sedge. This is a native sedge that you'll find in the generally the woodlands under cedar and oak trees. It's cedar sedge, Carex planostachys. The sedges have gained popularity in recent years as no-mow evergreen lawns, and this is one that can be used that way, although it is very slow growing. There are some others that are a little more adapted to that are easier to get established. If you do try using the cedar sedge that way, first of all, be careful where you dig it, but if you're moving it around on your own property, you'll want to get a lot of the root system with some soil, because it is a little bit difficult to transplant. But it's an excellent plant to use as a low-growing ground cover or sod. Here's a close-up of the cedar sedge. And this is in the winter. You can see a few dead leaves that have accumulated. If you do choose to mow this sedge in a lawn situation, it's recommended that you not do that more than once or twice a year. But even that isn't really necessary. As you can see, it looks fine just the way it is.